You know, I've been a member of the European Parliament now almost 10 years, so a little bit more than 9 years. And whenever I look at this room or walk past it, I don't think of the big votes we've had here. I don't always think about the big political discussions that we push through as legislators. I think to an event where I was around your age. It was a little bit of a long time ago, in this room where I was a young pro-European activist working with friends, still my friends, some of them members of this House today, fighting, it was a fight, for our countries to join the European Union, explaining what Erasmus is, how interesting it was to speak different languages, how proud we were to form part of a pro-European political force that could be forward-looking, that could be progressive, that could be moderate where it needed to be moderate, but that could also provide the solutions that people look to politicians when those challenges were too much to bear. I sometimes think that today it's like student politics grown up, because that's exactly what we still talk about. And that's exactly why this Parliament is such an alive institution that wants to make your life better. Now, this might sound like a cliché. This might sound like, yeah, you know, how often are we going to talk about what politics does? What politicians should do? Maybe all politicians are the same. My main message to you is don't let that cynicism get to you. Don't allow somebody else to take the decisions for you. If you don't vote, if you don't fight for what you believe in, no matter how difficult the hill in front of you can be, then somebody else will vote instead of you. And the end result might be something that, first of all, you don't like, secondly, you don't identify with, and thirdly, you sometimes can't reverse. Why do I say this? Because we are not living a very easy time. When on the 1st of March, President Zelensky addressed us, we were the first parliament for President Zelensky to address online. We didn't know whether the connection was going to work. Just over 1 week since Russia had invaded Ukraine, and this room was packed. It was Manfred, and thank you, Jack, for giving me this time. There were all the colleagues sitting here waiting to hear from a European leader who was telling us that Europe is the only light, that millions of people across the world look to Europe as their hope. Because we represent those freedoms that the rest of the world wants to have. And that we should never, ever forget. Previous generations, politicians that came before us, fought so hard against sometimes insurmountable challenges, sometimes against autocratic regimes for decades and decades. My generation, in my country, has never experienced war until today. And today, whoever is in a position of political leadership has to take decisions that are sometimes very, very difficult. If I look at my country, and I'm also a member of the European Parliament, so my guests are also here, and they will share this view. What is the number one concern today? It's employment, it's economic security, it's the ability to make ends meet, it's the challenge to make sure that the gaps don't increase. It's also the solutions that we need, that we discussed today on the current energy crisis. Huge challenges that we have. We need immediate solutions, mid-term, long-term, but let's not look away anymore like we've done for years now. It was too easy for us to buy cheap gas. It was too easy for us. How many of you are from the Baltic countries? It was so easy for us to not listen to you when you said that we have a problem with Putin. How many of you are from Poland? Slovakia? Czech Republic? So easy for us to look away and say, we will continue, while at the same time being so heavily dependent on fossil fuels from an unreliable, autocratic, menacing neighbour, rather than invest in renewables. It was so easy to think that we will retain our competitive edge as a European Union when compared to our American, Chinese counterparts. A country that has been developed on such a different value set to ours. And I say this not in order to bring in a sense of doom. I don't do that. It's not my style. And I also wanted to say, Jack, you said you can't eat and drink in the Parliament. I hope you'll be able to eat and drink somewhere. I spent a lot of my time doing that growing up in youth politics. That's exactly where I found my friends. But when you met your friends here, when you spend the next 3 days here discussing with people, don't only discuss with your friends that you know. Look to your left, to your right, because do you know what? When I find myself, and I'll give you one particular example, when I find myself in the European Council today with the prime ministers, there are two around that table that I grew up with, that I was in this very room fighting until it was, I think, 4 o'clock in the morning, and our chair there, it was Italian, he stood up on that podium, stood up actually, the ushers at the time were not super happy, in order, to try to find common pro-European solutions at the time. It was the Youth Convention in preparation for the conference of the future of Europe, which is still our future today, because that has been a very difficult position. What do we do next week? I'll give you a little bit of a snapshot into what we will do. And that's why it's important to hear what Sabine, Lydia and Eva will say to you today. Real, practical stuff. This is what our political force has always pushed for. Real, practical, immediate, pragmatic solutions that leave no one behind, that allow for equal access to opportunity, that make sure that every woman has rights across the European Union, that there is no backsliding on any rights. It is time for more Europe. Who would have told us 2 years ago that we would be able to finally find common solutions on health? We always said, that's a competence for member states, don't touch it. What was our first instinct when COVID hit? We closed our borders, thinking that the virus stops at police check. What did we realize the week after? We needed ventilators to move from one country to another. We needed nurses, medical doctors. What did we realize this year with forest fires? One country can't deal with it alone. We saw the help that Portugal was given. We saw the help that Greece was given. I now push a little bit further. We found huge solidarity when millions of Ukrainians, still millions today, fled their countries in the beginning of the war. There are still 5 million outside in different EU member states. There are 7 million internally displaced inside Ukraine alone. We found immediate solidarity. Are we ready to find that immediate solidarity when other people from other countries try to find refuge in Europe? That for millions of young people around the world, the only hope is Europe. The only solution is Europe. Let's not forget that these are challenges that you and us need to solve. At the same time, we also need to be proud, because the reason why people want to seek refuge in our continent is because we can offer it, we can give it. Being effective, having an effective migration policy is necessary. Return those who are not eligible. Make sure rules are followed. Make sure that there is no discrimination. But remember that behind every statistic is a human person and a human life. That's what I, as a Christian Democrat, grow up with and have lived with. So I have a huge speech which I've ignored, basically, I just realised. But I'll just tell you two last points. First of all, there is virtue in leadership. Being elected as a politician does not make you a leader. What makes you a leader is being able to fight for what is right. What makes you a leader means standing up for others when nobody else speaks for them. And if I ask you to take away this week, is that there will always be people left behind. And it's our responsibility, collectively, to make sure that that number continues to grow smaller. And the very last point I will say is hold your politicians to account. Speak up when you disagree. They could be your best friend, they could be your local elected mayor, they could be someone you do not agree with. Speak up, because if you don't, maybe others won't. Thanks a lot. Have fun, a lot of fun, and good luck.